It's a good morning to you. Welcome to Asake Online. This is the Breakfast Club, and my name is Zenzele Ndebele. Every day we bring you different programs, different individuals, and different stories where we talk about many things, but it's usually about the Zimbabwean lives, the Zimbabwean story, the Zimbabwean situation, and we are happy to get your feedback, to get your contributions. It's unfortunate yesterday we could not bring you the story because of there's problems, but we hope today we are not going to have those problems. Like we always remind you, please, COVID is the real, it's out there. Stay safe where you are able to stay at home. Please stay at home. And if you can't stay at home, wear a mask when you're going out, sanitize, practice social distancing. The good thing is that we have seen the number of recoveries going up. We also seen the number of people testing positive, at least going down a bit. And I hope that will not lead to complacency and people going back to their old ways. So we encourage people to really stay home and stay safe, because we know our situation, we know our health services, and the only way to beat COVID is to prevent it. And because you never know whether you might end up in a hospital or you might end up needing the ventilator and all those kind of things. So if you can stay home, you're safe. Today in our program, we'll be talking to the Secretary General for MDC T, Douglas Mwonzora. I mean, many of you know him. He is not new in the Zimbabwean politics, but we want to hear from him on a number of issues on the situation in Zimbabwe right now, about his party and what's the way forward. What are they promising Zimbabwe? What are the options that they have, and any solution, or is the same story that we've had with many other people? Babu Mwonzora,
thank you very much, Salbonani Baba.
Yes, yes. Welcome to the Breakfast Club.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I mean, my first question, let's get just down to business. My first question to you is, tell us, we have heard so many stories about the Zimbabwean situation currently, some calling it a crisis, others saying that there is no crisis. From the MDC point of view, do you think there is a crisis in Zimbabwe?
Yes, we think that there is a crisis in Zimbabwe, and that this crisis is multifaceted. We have the crisis of the economy, and in the crisis of the economy is the crisis of confidence that the world and the Zimbabwean community has over the economy. We have the issues of governance. We have the crisis of contested legitimacy. After every election, there is a contest about the outcome of that election. But the other problem we have is the problem of conflation of the military, the party, and the state. There is militarization of key institutions. For example, the militarization of the Zimbabwe Election Commission, the militarization of agriculture, as well as the militarization in the health sector. We have the crisis of poverty. Most of our people live below the poverty datum line. Most of our people live in poverty and misery. We have the endemic problem of corruption, done by those in authority. And this has cost us more than sanctions have cost us. I was looking at the statistics provided by a friend, an economist friend of mine, who showed me that Zimbabwe over the past decade had lost more money from corruption, the leakages created by corruption, than from sanctions. We have a problem, of course, of human rights violations, and a problem that emanates from failure to observe the Constitution. But as I say, this crisis is multifaceted, and its causes are many. The cause of this crisis cannot be pinned down on a single individual. It is shared. It is a shared responsibility for this crisis. And we need to deal with this crisis in a decisive manner. Some of the aspects have to be completely depoliticized so that you can effectively deal with them. For example, if you want to deal with corruption, you have to completely depoliticize. People who are corrupt are criminals, and they have to be dealt with as criminals. If you depoliticize it, you remove the political protection that comes with politicizing an issue. So if you remove the politics out of it, you then deal with it in an objective manner. We have seen people with the corruption dating back as early as the days of the infamous Willowgate scandal. Then we have corruption in the land allocation. We have corruption now in the Ministry of Health. We have corruption almost in agriculture. We have corruption almost in every facet. So this is a cancer that we must deal with. And the earlier we learn to deal with this problem as objectively as we can, the better it is for Zimbabwe. But to deal with this issue in a partisan manner, to deal with this issue through hate, anger, violence, abuse of human rights is not going to help the situation at all.
I like the way you have summarized these problems, because you are talking about the problems that people are all have been talking about. You're talking about the conflation of the state, corruption. I mean, in the past the past 2 weeks or so, we've seen crackdown on journalists, on activists. There's been tension, basically. I mean, we saw the South African envoy coming to Zimbabwe and to try and talk about these situations. And then later on, a few days ago, the bishops wrote a letter, the pastoral letter, which has caused a lot of trouble or dust within government circles. Did you have a chance to read the letter, and what was your comment on that letter?
Yes, I had a chance to read the pastoral letter. I also had the chance to read the response from the government. And my immediate reaction was that the reaction of the government and the public spat that it created shows the toxic nature of our politics. I think the pastors raised a number of issues. They raised an issue of the compensation of white farmers and the failure to do anything about the compensation of the workers who were working on those farms and who lost their livelihood as a result of the land reform. They talked about the violence, they talked about the human rights abuses, they talked of a number of issues, some of which I have already enumerated. And I think instead of reacting the way it did, the government must engage the church. We believe that the church must take its responsibility in being an agent in fostering democracy in the country. The church was involved in the liberation struggle. We all know about the work of the Catholic Church, the work of church-related institutions in helping the nationalist struggle. The church was also instrumental in exposing the excesses in Gokura, during Gokura in Matabeleland and the Lower Bwero. The church was further involved in dealing with the issues leading to the signing of the Unity Accord. The church was involved. The church was involved in constitutionalism, trying to bring a new constitution and a constitutional dispensation in this country. So it is an important institution and it has to be respected. But let me just say that when we deal with the issues of human rights and so on, what we now need in this country is empirical evidence to be put in, and these are days of technology now. So we encourage our people whenever they have had evidence, they've experienced an abuse, an abrogation of human rights, to document that, to give proof of that, so that you do not have a situation where people argue on whether the phenomenon exists or not. This is a question of fact, where people abducted or not. We shouldn't even argue about it. All what people should simply do is to provide the names and to provide the dates and to provide the instances. But the reaction of the government, in my respectful view, was not measured. The government could still disagree with the pastoral letter, but calling people names was not called for. What the government must do, if it disputes what is in the letter, is simply to provide us with evidence to the contrary. This is what civilized people do. But in my respectful view, the situation is not beyond redemption. We can still deal with this situation through dialogue. And this dialogue must be inclusive, genuine and unconditional. It must be dialogue involving the political actors, the church, civil society, business. Everybody has a role to play in resolving the Zimbabwe crisis.
Yeah, some of the issues that were mentioned by the pastoral letter are not new. We have known human rights abuses for quite a while and people being arrested. I'm reminded that sometime in 2000, you were arrested for saying that the decision to pull out of the Commonwealth was an act of foolish bravery. And you were arrested for that. And looking at the period when there was Mugabe, the new dispensation, have you seen the change in the way government behaves when it comes to human rights abuses?
Well, I think the scale is slightly different. I think the scale is slightly different. You cannot compare what happened in 2008 to what is happening now, the aftermath of the election in 2008. The MDC lost about 300 youngsters. Tondera Indira, Beta Chokurama, Godfrey Kauzani, Shepard Jani, and a lot of our youngsters, promising youngsters, were lost in that violence. So the scale could be different. But the intolerance, the intolerance to opposing views has to be dealt with. I believe that if the government suspects anybody of having committed a crime, then those people must be dealt with in accordance with the law. When we did the Constitution, we put in mechanisms to deal with situations where there has been commission of crime, and the people accused of committing crimes are guaranteed of certain rights, access to their lawyers, the right to dignity, the right to fair treatment, the fair trial before an impartial jury. All those rights must be respected. And I think the government can still be effective without being brutal.
Maybe it's the last issue on the issue of the pastoral letter. The issue of Bukuraundi always comes up each time there are these issues, and the government has never responded quite clear. In your view, I mean, the government went on to compensate white farmers square and fine, but they have not been willing to compensate victims of the Bukuraundi. If you were in power, how are you going to deal with the issue of Bukuraundi?
Yes, if you can allow me to go to quickly dispense with the compensation problem. I think that compensating for expropriated land is provided for in the Constitution as well as in the African Charter. But there are problems with this deal. This deal seeks to compensate only white farmers. It does not seek to compensate black farmers who lost their land as a result of the actions of government. One of these examples is Churu Farm, Dabaning Stole's Churu Farm, here in Harare, in the outskirts of Harare. His land was expropriated by the government for political reasons. He has not been compensated. And a reading of the deal shows that it does not cover him. It does not cover people like him. That's one problem. The second problem is that it does not deal with the fate of the farm workers who were deriving their livelihood from these farms. So it has to be more comprehensive than that. It has to be more, it has to be fairer than that. We are a labor-based party. We are a social democratic party. And we look very, very closely at the rights of the workers, at the rights of the oppressed and the downtrodden. Now, coming to Bukuraundi, in my respective view, this is a blight in the history of this country. It's a great shame that people were targeted as a result of their ethnic origin, their tribal inclinations, and so on. They were targeted for that reason, and we lost about 20,000 ethnic Ndebelers in that senseless war. Some people, innocent people, most innocent people were killed under the pretext that they were dissidents. It was only after the amnesty that we noticed how few the so-called dissidents were. I think they were, I don't think they were more than 200. I think it is 100 and something people who came out. And yet 20,000 people were killed. Some of the people who were affected, I personally know them from Matabele South, where some of my relatives are located. So we have a lot of problems associated with that conflict in Matabeleland. People without documentation, without birth certificates. We have an extremely underdeveloped region, marginalized region. Most of its young people, most of the young people in Matabeleland trek down south to look for ways of spending for their families, and they go there without adequate documentation. And the government has done absolutely nothing to deal with that problem of documentation. So this is how we will deal with it if we are a government. There is a constitutional foundation for post-conflict justice. We have to look at the injustice for the community and seek to deal with that. So we deal with that by looking at how the community livelihood can be improved. Matabeleland is a region of great natural endowments. We have gas, methane gas in Lupani. We are rich in flora and fauna in Matabeleland. There's gold in Rwanda. There are other minerals. There's the coal in Wange, and so on. We have the great Zambezi in Tongaland. We have a lot of economic potential in Matabeleland. So besides compensating the individuals, we have to deal with development of the region. The Matabeleland water project, the Zambezi water project, has apparently been abandoned, but that will ensure that there is irrigation and food sufficiency within that region. Then we go to the individuals who were affected or whose families were affected. If we can compensate the white farmers for the land that was expropriated, we can compensate our black people for the lives senselessly lost. So, but we don't end with Gukurahundi. We go to the other excesses in other parts of the country. Well, I have to admit that they will not at the same scale as Gukurahundi, but we have to deal with the state-sponsored violence victims in 2008, for example. We have to deal with the forced disappearance of people like Itai Zamara and so on. The government has to take responsibility for what happened in Matabeleland, what happened in other parts of the country, and seek to deal with post-conflict justice. But another important thing, looking at the issues of Gukurahundi, is truth-telling. The people want to know what happened to their loved ones. I have had a chance to listen to one or two friends who were directly affected. All they want to know is what happened to their parents. All they want to know is exactly where were they buried and so on. So truth-telling is important. It has happened in other parts of the country or of the world. East Timor, it has happened in South Africa, and it has a therapeutic value.
Yeah, let's move on to the issue of dialogue. One of the issues that you talked about was the inclusive dialogue, and there is, after 2018, we saw the formation of Pollard, whose aim was to, deal with the issues of dialogue. In your view, do you think Pollard is working?
Well, first of all, let me say that for dialogue to work, it must have three elements. It must be genuine, it must be inclusive, and it must be unconditional. Now, if you look at those aspects and do look at the Zimbabwean context, the problem with Poland is that it is limited to political actors, as if the crisis affects them alone. I think that we could do better by widening that the forum of dialogue to include the churches, to include civil society, labor, and business. In that way, there is no danger, if we include all those people, there is no danger of a dialogue process generating or culminating into an elite pact. An elite pact is where maybe political actors sit and decide on the way forward, share a few things here and there, and it doesn't permeate to the grassroots. It doesn't benefit the people of Zimbabwe. It may be a starting point, but it is not, I don't think it is a sufficient initiative, in my respectful view. And the MDC right now is making proposals on how to have meaningful dialogue in Zimbabwe, dialogue that is going to have an everlasting solution to the Zimbabwean crisis. That's our guiding principle. We are for dialogue, and that dialogue must lead to an everlasting solution to the problems bedeviling Zimbabwe. That's round number one. Round number two, in approaching dialogue, we must be guided by what is in the best interest of the Zimbabwean people. That is why we are welcoming the initiative by the South African president to appoint an envoy to factify. The first thing is they are trying to factify on what is happening in Zimbabwe. That is a noble initiative by a neighbor, and I want to say President Ramaphosa has behaved very, very responsibly, in my respectful view, in doing that. And I think that the criticism that accompanied the appointment of the envoy is uncalled for. For example, we saw criticism on why he appointed certain persons. It's not up to us to dictate to President Ramaphosa the people who should speak on his behalf. It is his prerogative. But we must approach this as objectively as we can, as fairly as we can, with an intention to find a lasting solution and act in the best interest of the Zimbabwean people. So we do welcome the initiative.
Yeah, I know people are there. There are quite a number of people watching with a number of questions. I will pick some of the questions here and there. There's someone who's saying, the question is from Dr. Shepard Mpofu. He says, do you recognize ED as the legitimate president? If so, why is there a need of dialogue?
Well, first of all, we must not forget, Doctor, that there is a problem of contested legitimacy in the country. There's no question about that. Saying that there's a question of contested legitimacy is not the same as talking about illegitimacy. It's not the same. It is that without even going to the question of legitimacy or illegitimacy, there is an objective truth. And the objective truth is that there is an issue of contested legitimacy. The issue relating to the election of 2018 was taken to the court, the Constitutional Court. In my respectful view, it shouldn't have gone there. If people wanted to have a political solution to it, it was a political issue which needed a political solution. And legalizing it, getting it to the legal forum was a mistake, which I told my friends, Nelson Chamisa and other people, that first of all, if we take this matter to court, we must have sufficient material to challenge it. We didn't have that. And the risk that if a court made a pronouncement, then that would be the end of the matter as far as the legal and the constitutional issues are concerned. So the fact of the matter is that we do have a person who is presiding over the affairs of Zimbabwe in the office of the president. He exists, he is there. Whether I agree with him, whether I agree with his election, is of no moment at all. What is important is that we must deal once and for all with the problems of contested legitimacy. How we deal with this problem is to make sure that we have electoral reforms that guarantee the secrets of the vote, the security of the vote, the security of the voter. Elections that enfranchise the majority of the people of Zimbabwe. We have 4 million people living outside Zimbabwe in the diaspora, and these people are not allowed to vote. They must be allowed to vote. So for me, the Zimbabweans must look forward. They must deal with the issues that are affecting this country. One of them is the issue of contested legitimacy. It must be put to rest by a concrete electoral reforms that must be done. Whether President Mnangagwa is legitimate or illegitimate does not take away the importance of dialogue. The dialogue must always be there where there are national issues. And I just enumerated to you the national issues that are there. Corruption, human rights abuses, governance, the economy, and extreme poverty. And the polarization of our society, it exists. So a crisis does exist, which needs solution.
Yeah, Begani Donga says, you speak a lot of sense, but why is that you cannot promote dialogue within the MDCs?
Well, this is what we are trying to do, my brother, and we are trying to introduce change within the MDC. We are trying to rebuild the party. And how we rebuild the party, we have to look at about 4 issues that we have to attend to within the MDC. First of all, we must always have an elected leadership. Number 2, we must always have collective decision-making as well as collective responsibility. Number 3, we must have democratic decision-making. And number 4, when we choose our candidates for council, for parliament, we must always do it through a democratic process. We must promote unity. We must have a mass line, maintain the mass line. But most importantly, we must follow the constitution. So what you are seeing within the MDC is a battle between following the constitution and not following the constitution. We are saying that we must follow our constitution. The Supreme Court said the people of the MDC must go to the election, to the extraordinary Congress and vote for a candidate of their choice. They didn't say go and vote for Mwonzora, go and vote for Muzuri, go and vote for Kube, or don't go and vote for Chamisa. They said go and vote for a president of your choice. And we are trying to go past that legal issue, the extraordinary Congress. And we have started already trying to initiate dialogue within the opposition. We sent Engineer Muzuri to talk to Nelson Chamisa in April. He was not interested. We are talking to members of parliament. We are talking to our councillors. We are talking to other party members. So the initiative of dialogue is there. But this should be dialogue predicated on certain values. The MDC must always remember that it is a social democratic party, and it is social democracy ideological orientation. The values of freedom, justice, equality, constitutionalism, and the rule of law. This is what binds us. But unfortunately, what we have seen through the social media is hate language, ranga, name calling, and so on. If you disagree with people, you are called ZANU-PF immediately, irrespective of your history with the same people. You have been in the struggle together. They elected you. In my case, I have always held a position of responsibility as a result of elections. For example, when I was elected spokesperson in Baba Fields in Bulawayo, I won by 1,600 votes. Those were not ZANU-PF people. They were MDC people who saw value in me. And then in 2014, I was elected as the Secretary General, beating Nelson Chamisa by almost 1,000 votes. Again, those were not ZANU-PF votes. Those were MDC votes. Now, I don't suddenly become ZANU-PF because I disagree. This is the fundamental issue. We want to stop this tendency of shutting up people on the basis that they will fear being called names. It must come to an end, and we are determined to bring it to an end.
Yeah, I mean, the issues that we're talking about, reading through the comments, I've seen people calling you a ZANU-PF puppet. Some people say, can we trust you? I'll ask this question here. Are you being used by ZANU-PF?
Certainly not. And I want to tell you how I feel about that accusation. I feel exactly the same way that Chris Hani would have felt if his comrades had accused him of being an apartheid agent. I feel like that. I have never had any dealings with ZANU-PF, be they business dealings. I've never had business dealings with the ZANU-PF or a ZANU-PF president. I have never had business dealings with them. I have never benefited from the benevolence or the paternalism of ZANU-PF. I didn't take anything from the mechanization program. I see a few names are being thrown around and people are not denying it. It is those people who have dined and wined with ZANU-PF who make these accusations. I'm quite happy to say those who say I am ZANU-PF, bring the evidence, show it to the world, show the Zimbabweans that this man is linked to ZANU-PF. Give us the concrete evidence. I am very prepared for that, and I welcome people who have that evidence to bring it forward. But what we see in the social media is simple name calling. They will call you Mutengesi, but they won't give you an instant, concrete evidence of that selling out. For them, disagreeing with them is selling out. Now, when the Supreme Court made its judgment in the case involving the MDC, I took a decision together with my comrades. I took a decision to abide by the court judgment, to abide by constitutionalism and the rule of law. Others disagreed. We then were involved in a fight, a political fight, the battle for parliament, the battle for Harvest House, the battle for finance. And we prosecuted those lines of conflict in a very, very competent manner. In the parliament, we presented better arguments. Those arguments were tested by a court of law. And it's not us who went to court. It is them who took us to court and they lost. It is them who chose the court forum and they lost. Now, when they lost, they then called the court ZANU-PF. Why did they go to the ZANU-PF courts? And as I speak right now, Zenzele, they have taken us to court 9 times. What type of person goes to a capital charge institution on 9 occasions expecting a different result? But in some of these instances, the courts have given judgments favorable to them, and they have welcomed those judgments. And when they lost these ones, they accused us of being ZANU-PF. I have been a lawyer for almost 30 years. I am certainly an experienced legal practitioner. I view myself as meticulous when it comes to dealing with the matters of law. I'm careful, I read the papers, and I personally supervise our lawyers. And this is what we did, and we won. The issue of Harvest House, again, it was a political fight, that we outmaneuvered them, that we were smarter, that our guys were more careful and more potent in their planning, should not be blamed on us. That we went to the court and won. The issue of the political funding, the political funding, they took us to court. But when they took us to court, when they took the matter to court, the matter was appealed against. And their lawyers ought to have known the effect of an appeal. The effect of an appeal is to suspend the decision appealed against. And what they won in the High Court was suspended for a period of 3 months, and they did not do anything about it. Lawyers know that if you have appealed and there is a danger of execution of the judgment being dealt with, you apply for execution pending appeal. Their lawyers didn't do that. And when they lost, they blame other people. And when they lose, they call other people names. How do I become ZANU-PF? I was spokesman of the MDC under Changirai. I negotiated the Constitution of Zimbabwe. I was Secretary General, and I don't suddenly become ZANU-PF because I disagree.
You know, there is the issue of the recalling of the MPs. We have seen your party recalling MPs, and currently, because of the COVID situation, we don't have by-elections. So the net effect of that is that the people who took these people to parliament suffer, because ZANU-PF's majority will always, win the end of the day. What's your comment on that action? Does it help them anyway?
The first thing is that who took these people to parliament? That is the first question that we must ask. These members of parliament, the 103, there are 111 members of parliament who are in opposition, belong to 3 political parties. The first group of 4 belong to MDC led by Mube. The second group of 4 belongs to the People's Democratic Party led by Biti. The 103 belonged to the MDC T. They were seconded by the MDC T, which was a member of the MDC Alliance. We had a pre-election agreement. We had a pre-election pact. And in that pact, each party was given its quota of MPs to field. And we fielded more MPs than other political parties. We did not field MPs where some of the alliance partners had fielded their MPs. And the net effect is that the majority of the MPs in the opposition belong to the MDC-T. This MDC-T is the MDC-T whose leadership was decided by the Supreme Court. The leadership was sent back to the 2014 structures in which I am Secretary General. So these MPs belong to the MDC-T. And this was tested by the courts. So when these people then said that they formed another party, the MDC Alliance Party, as opposed to the MDC Alliance. And let me explain here. The MDC Alliance is a group of 7 political parties, which was established in terms of the alliance agreement signed on the 15th of August in 2017 by Morgan Tsvangirai and his colleagues in the alliance pact. And this is the entity that went into the election. And inside it, there was the MDC-T being the dominant party. Whoever was leader of the MDC-T, ipso facto became the leader of the MDC Alliance. It had a lifespan, and it ended at election time. And it said in the alliance agreement that each individual party shall retain its identity, and it shall have jurisdiction over its MPs. It is there in black and white. And for those who may doubt, I want you to go to the alliance agreement, clause 2 of the alliance agreement. It says that the parties retain their individual identity. Clause 4.1.7 of the alliance agreement deals with recall. So you recall MPs who were your members when they went to parliament. Now, in terms of the MDC constitution, if you form another political party, your termination is automatic. Termination of the membership of the MDC is automatic. So these people say they went and formed the MDC Alliance Party. Some say in Guero, some say after Guero. Now that's forming another political party. In terms of clause 5.10a of the MDC Constitution, you terminate your membership. So these members of parliament were not expelled. They terminated their membership of the MDC-T through their conduct. They were the authors of their own problem. And some of their leaders sacrificed them. They knew the legal position. Tendai Biti knew the legal position. Welshman knew the legal position. Nelson Chamisa knew or ought to have known the legal position. They went on to sacrifice their people. They used their members as cannon fodder. They knew the legal position. They knew how the courts had ruled. They were in possession of the alliance agreement. And most importantly, they were in possession of the MDC Constitution.
This is quite interesting. We can talk about it. Now let's come to your Congress. We know you are planning the Congress. What's the way forward now that you could not have it the day you were supposed to?
Yes. Well, first of all, we had said that this Congress must happen on the 31st of July. Unfortunately, by that time, we got advice from the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Home Affairs to the effect that there had been a spike in COVID-19 cases. And this was an objective truth. The MDC in particular was affected. Some of its MPs were actually contracted this disease, and I'm happy to say that they have recovered. Thank God for that. But the fact is that there was a spike in COVID cases was an objective truth. We then approached the courts to extend the period to a period of summer where the temperatures are
Yeah, if you are just joining us, this is the Breakfast Club, and today my guest is Douglas Mwonzora, the MDC T Secretary General. He seems to have a network problem there. I'm just hoping that he's going to be joining us shortly. But meanwhile, while I'm waiting for him to come up, we know internet is a problem. I see a lot of comments and people saying a lot of things, and some of them were saying, no, yes, Mwonzora, you went to Gweru, you lost. Others are saying when you formed the MDC alliance, you knew it was a different party. So keep those comments coming, and let's hear your views. So I'm just waiting for Mwonzora to join us, because there seems to have been a problem with the connection there. So I'll wait for a bit and see if he can join us. For now, let me try and read the comments that people have here. I know some of the comments might not be in that good. I'll jump those where people are insulting each other. The same, this is Knowledge Takunda Hotowo. He says the same alliance agreement stated that each party shall field its candidate in its own name. MDC T did not nominate the candidate in their own name at the nomination court. Mate says, yes, you went to Gweru and lost. There is Denga who says ZANU-PF are the ones who went to expose our late president's illness at his Highlands house. Scar saying exactly, and they came to Matebelen and they preached their trash because they think we are desperate for leadership. So we have a lot of comments here. Someone says, Douglas, the MDC T is the major stakeholder in the MDC Alliance. The MDC Alliance actually does not goes to elections represented by an MDC president. So, like I said, this is the Breakfast Club. We are waiting for Mwonzora to connect or reconnect. We seem to have had the problems of the network there, and we lost him. So, if for those who his team, can you please ask him to rejoin again if he can, because we had one or two other questions before we could end the program. We want to hear the way forward on the Congress. We also want to hear from the MDC what is their plan in terms of the economic position. What's their plan in saving the economy, if ever they have a plan? And also we want to know whether they're going to, I mean, for my interest for Mwonzora was he's already contesting Coupe in the presidency. So what happens if he loses the MDC presidency? Is he willing to, is he going to go back to Secretary General? Is he willing to be an ordinary member of the MDC T? So I hope he's going to be able to connect. And let me just try and send a WhatsApp message. Okay, so the guys are saying that they are reconnecting. Thanks to that. My name is Zenzele, and this is the Breakfast Club. Today in the program, we are talking to the MDC T Secretary General Douglas Mwonzora. I mean, there were a lot of things. I mean, what I find interesting for me when it comes to Mwonzora is that he seems to be saying a lot of things that people want to hear. And my question is he just being a politician? Is he genuine? You know, when he talks about corruption, the conflation of the state and the party and all those kind of things. And I mean, these are the issues that we hear about every day, people talking about them. And the question is he saying this because he wants to be re-elected, or he says this because he genuinely believes in that? So I'm hoping that he's going to be connecting soon. And my worry is time as well, because we have another program coming up in the next few minutes. So I'm not sure whether we will be able to have him. So a lot of people saying that he's also, someone says he's speaking a lot of sense. Chamisa failed to follow their own constitution. And if we entertain this kind of leadership, we're inviting another trouble in future. Mwonzora, no matter you hate him, he's 100% right. Someone says crooks always try to justify their actions. My question to Honorable Mwonzora, does he think the elections were free and fair? Okay, let's try and get Mwonzora in. Secretary General, are you able to hear me? If you can able to hear me, just activate your audio because I can see you are in now, but the audio, we are waiting for you to connect the audio, then we'll get started. Okay, I hope you are back now. If you are able to hear me, just connect the audio. You are connected, you're online, but we don't have the audio. So if we can, okay. Are you there now?
Sorry, this is the problem of Zimbabwean network.
Yeah, definitely.
This is one of the first things that we will fix when we get into power. Not if we get into power, but when we get into power.
So when you get into power, please make sure that internet works properly. So I mean, we now have about 5 or so minutes to conclude the program because there is another program coming up. But let's conclude on your Congress. What's the way forward on the issue of your Congress?
Yes, we are going to have the Congress. Actually, today we are having our strategic planning workshop in Harare, where we are arranging the issues of Congress, the timelines. It's likely to happen on or before the 30th of October. And we are working flat out to make sure that we have this Congress without compromising, of course, the health of the people. In this Congress, we have set ground rules. One of those ground rules is that those who are potential candidates must desist from hate language. They must speak about themselves. They must not speak about their opponents. So if you are Mr. Mwonzora, you must speak about your achievements and what you offer to the party. And always remember that to be respectful to the other members. We have now finished compiling the voters' roll. We are going to be appointing an independent electoral commission that is going to run our Congress. We are not going to run it ourselves. We are going to have independent people run the Congress. Remember, this Congress only deals with election of one person, the acting president. And after that, we will have another Congress in about 6 months' time to elect all the other leaders.
Yeah, so you are contesting for president this Congress.
It looks like, although of course the process of nomination is not yet over, but it looks like that there are a few people who are urging me to contest. And I will look at how strong this sentiment is. I may contest.
Okay, let's assume that you're going to contest the elections and you lose to Thokozani Kupe. Are you going to remain a member of the party or you're going to leave?
Well, democracy is the dictatorship of the majority. Democracy means that the majority decision prevails. And if you subject yourself to a democratic process, you must accept its outcomes. It's like going to court. I always tell my friends in the Alliance Party that if you go to court, you must always remember that there's a possibility of winning, there's a possibility of losing. So if you go to an election process, there's a possibility of winning and there's a possibility of losing. And in that case, if I do not succeed, then I will serve as much as I can under the new leader, a democratically elected leader. And I expect everyone to serve under me should I win.
No, there are some people who are going to say, but that was the same situation with you in the MDC alliance. If you had won the MDC presidents, were you going to leave or follow the Supreme Court ruling?
Oh yes, I was going to do that. If I had been the MDC president, I would not have made the blunders that Nelson Chamisa made. He had reached a certain peak associated with the election fever that had gripped our people. And I told him to hold the extraordinary Congress. He fluffed that chance. I wouldn't have fluffed that chance. I wouldn't have let that chance go, and so on. So I was Secretary General then when I was asking the party to go for extraordinary Congress. I was in a position of authority. So this is not something that I'm saying out of convenience. It's something that I said in 2008 in February, before Morgan Tsvangirai died. I said it. I went on to ask Chamisa, Kupe, and Mujuri at a meeting that they must facilitate the holding of an extraordinary Congress. And before we went to Gweru, I told Nelson Chamisa that we must go to an extraordinary Congress. This is not something that I am inventing because of anything. This is something that I have always said. And this is something that I had become notorious for within the MDC.
I mean, lastly, we know that the economic situation in Zimbabwe is really not doing well, and the majority of people are suffering. What's your solution to the current economic problems?
First of all, we must make sure that we retain the confidence of the international community to the economy. First of all, we have to sort the politics. The investors will not want to come to a country that is unstable politically. So we have to sort the politics. We have to strengthen the institutions. There is a correlationship between economic development and the strength of our institutions. We must strengthen the Anti-Corruption Commission. We must strengthen the Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, the Peace and Reconciliation Commission. In short, we must strengthen the Charter of Institutions to deal with the politics. We must get the politics right. But we also have to deal with the stage of corruption. As I said, we are losing more revenue from corruption than from any other adverse factor. So we have to deal with that. But importantly also, Mugabe looked east, ZANU-PF looked east at some point in time. We are neither going to look east nor west. We are not going to look south or north. We are going to look everywhere. Zimbabwe must be a friend of the world. We must integrate ourselves in the world community. We must accept international scrutiny to our politics, to our economics, to the way we do things. But most importantly, we must increase the level of transparency in our country. We intend to develop this country through the social democratic route. And we are going to borrow very, very strongly with from what the Scandinavians have done, the politics of inclusivity, the politics of tolerance, and so on. But most importantly, we have to deal with the economic issues, getting the policies right, confidence in the economy. We have to deal with the currency issues and so on. So there are a lot of issues that can be done. But we realize that everybody has the role to play. Bigger parties, smaller parties, socially connected people, not so socially connected people. All these people have a role to play in redressing the problems of Zimbabwe. We must have a shared national vision. Our vision is to see Zimbabwe the economic hub and industrial hub of the African continent. It is rich in human capital. We have a good infrastructure, a good road network. I'm not talking about the quality of the roads. I am talking about the network itself. It has to be taken advantage of. Although we are landlocked, we are also centrally positioned, and we can take advantage of this geography. We are a country of an excellent climate, and so on. So with good economics, with good politics, we must be able to improve the lot of our people.
Thank you very much, Babu Mwonzora, for giving us this time to talk
but
to
most
you.
Importantly,
yes.
Most importantly, Zanele, I'm sorry. We must preach, we must practice what we preach. If we say to our people that we are going for demonstrations, we must go for demonstrations. We mustn't leave them, we mustn't abandon them at the hour of need. So we have to improve on the quality of bravery of our leaders.
On that note, I mean, are you going to be calling for people to demonstrate yourself?
Well, we do not want for a minute to compromise on the fundamental rights of the Zimbabwean people. And Section 59 of the Constitution says Zimbabweans have the right to demonstrate, to peacefully demonstrate. So yes, we will be demonstrating. We will be demonstrating over issues and so on. So yes, we are going to do that.
Okay, I was going to say my last question to you, or the last part to you is that, I mean, I've seen that in Zimbabwe there's a lot of political intolerance in terms of views. People fight because they have different points of view. And as politicians, what can you do to preach the politics of inclusivity, to say having different views, it doesn't mean that you are really my enemy because we disagree?
This is exactly what we have been saying all along, that we have to sort the politics. We have to remove the politics of hate, rancor, acrimony, violence, and intolerance, and replace it with the politics of rational disputation and tolerance. In other words, we must be able to listen to the other person's point of view. We must be able to disagree, but be civil about it. But in the politics of our day right now, we have the politics of name calling, violence, even people kill each other. We want to get rid of that politics. We have had enough bloodshed in this country. We have had enough hate in this country. We have seen tribal hate. We have seen people being prejudiced on the basis of their political history and so on. We want to put an end to that. You are free in this country. You must be free to pursue your ZANU-PF agenda. You must be free to pursue your Ndonga agenda, ZANU agenda, Kwakazi agenda. You must be free to pursue MDC agenda without being prejudiced for it. This is the politics we want to bring. And it starts with a sacrifice. And this is the sacrifice that we are prepared to pay.
Thank you very much, Secretary General, for your time. It was good to hear from you and your views, and we hope you are going to have a good Congress and good leadership will emerge after that. This was the Breakfast Club, and today we were talking to Douglas Mwonzora, who's the Secretary General for the MDC. We talked to a lot of issues. I'm sure some of you had your questions answered, where you disagree. Well, that's the whole idea of democracy, that we need to disagree. I'm sure we can take the debate again on social media and talk about some of these issues that were raised by Uba Mwonzora. My name is Zenzele Ndebele. This was the Breakfast Club. Till we meet again in other programs, have a good day.
Thank you.